Welcome back to Module 8, and in this particular video, Lesson 2, I'm going to guide you through using SPSS to conduct linear regression. Now, the first thing that you need to do is you need to open your SPSS up and go to this page, which is Variable View, where you define your variables. Now, in my particular example, I have number of sales calls and revenue. Based on the idea that the salesman goes out and he makes so many sales calls a week and he generates that week a specific revenue. And my goal is to make a model so that if he generates, we know if he generates, say, 15 sales calls, we could expect on average of this revenue. Notice that I have gone in and I have set the decimals accordingly. After you do that, you would go in and you would set up the revenue and enter your data. So I went to Data View and I entered in my sales calls and my revenue. Then you go up to Analyze and you select Regression. And when you do so, then you go over and select Linear and you come to this screen. Now in this screen, we have several things that you need to solve. You have a dependent variable, and that's what's being produced. And then you have down here the block 1 or 2, we'll call that the independent variable. But the revenue is what is being produced, and it is being produced by the number of sales calls. So you would enter in those amounts. Now, in your case, you may have a situation where you're producing revenue or you have a dependent variable. That's what is being produced. The independent variable is what is doing the producing. In this problem, the salesman is making sales calls and he is producing revenue from that. Now, once you get there, you need to go up here and hit Statistics. And when you hit Statistics, it brings up this screen, and estimates and model fit will be automatic. I entered in descriptives because I want to see my descriptives. Then I hit Continue, and when I do so, I go down here and I hit OK, and it actually runs the readout for this particular variable. Notice that we have a table called Descriptive Statistics. We have down here the R correlation, the Pearson R, and it's also up here. You get a lot of tables sometimes in readouts, and you don't need all of those tables. The first thing that you had to do in this problem is verify that there is sufficient correlation for the linear regression to have meaning. You note that your correlation is 0.894, and that's a very strong positive correlation. In other words, as the number of sales calls a week goes up, the number for revenue goes up. I also ran descriptive statistics because you always need those. The mean revenue is 47.21. The mean sales calls 12.9. You notice that you have the standard deviation and you have the number. Now, if I were entering that in my paper, I would round it to 0.8 and 0.9. Then I would go over here and round this to 0.62. and 0.20. So if you round the mean to 1 decimal, you round the standard deviation to 2 decimals, and then we see that we have 10 each. Now, I will scroll down on that page, and it gives you an ANOVA. You don't need that table here in this case. What you need is the one that is called coefficients. You notice it gives you a constant, 1229.318, and it gives you sales calls 270.735. This value right here, the constant, is the B. It is the y-intercept. And the next one is the slope of the curve. So we go on to this. You remember you have your linear regression formula, y equals ax plus b. We need to determine what is a and what is b. This value is b. It would plug in there. This value is A, and it would plug in there, and you would have this. Now, I want you to notice that I didn't round them off. You certainly could round them off. I could have done this as 270.7 or 270.74 if I'd wanted to. And whatever I round this off to, I also need to round that off to. If I'd round this to 270.7, this would be 1229.3. Now, what we have is a formula now that if you plug an x value into it, it will produce a Y. So if we plug in a number for the sales visits per week, it will predict for us what our revenue should be on average. Now, you've got this. I know it looks complicated, but it's really not. It's actually a lot of fun. This is a statistical predictive model. And you can let SPSS do the work. What you need to do is understand the concepts and know how to interpret the readout. Good luck. You've got this. You've come a long way since we started, and I'm very proud of your success.